Hello, welcome to Spotlight on Spruce. My name is Laura Higgs, and today is September 25th, 2023. And I have with me Grant Jackson, who is the PC candidate running for the MLA here in Spruce Woods.
That's right.
Got it all right, Grant. Well, welcome here, Grant.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here, Laura. Great to be back. I was here during my nomination period back in the winter with Cindy, and so just really great to be back with you this time.
Absolutely. Now, we have some questions for you. First off, let's start. The cost of owning a home has gone through the roof, and young families are really struggling to purchase their first home. What will a re-elected PC government do to help those get into a home?
Well, thanks, Laura. It's certainly a question that lots of folks my age are facing right now. They're trying to get out of living at home, trying to get out of the rental market and into owning their own home for the first time, but housing prices are high. And so a re-elected progressive conservative government has committed that they would remove the land transfer tax completely for first-time home buyers. So, that's money that you've got to have up front for the closing costs of a house as well as your down payment, and can be a significant number of dollars that you've got to have in hand. And so with these higher housing prices and folks having to save up more for larger down payments, we're saying, let's just waive the land transfer tax for first-time buyers, help them a little bit at least get into the market and get them off the books of the renters and free up some more of the renting spaces as well.
For sure. Great. Okay, inflation and rising interest rates are making life really difficult for everybody, basically, but seniors are really suffering, especially seniors on a fixed income. They also own their own home and are having difficulty paying their bills. Of course, being on a fixed income would do that, and having enough money at the end of every month. One of the policy proposals for the Progressive Conservative Party has put forward is to provide seniors the option to defer property taxes so that they have more money in their pockets. Can you explain how that works?
Sure. Yeah, so this proposal, if there is a re-elected progressive conservative government on October 3rd, this proposal would allow seniors living in their home on a fixed income to defer all property tax payments until such time as they decide to sell their home and the sale of that home goes through. And so they could then use the money from the sale of their home to pay back those taxes at that time. So that would free up, some of their disposable income, shall we say, while they're still living in their home, to be able to meet their other needs and to be able to live a more fulsome, enjoyable life. I think that, makes a little more wiggle room in some sometimes very tight budgets for seniors who are living on a fixed income. This has been done in other provinces, and we're saying, this is something we can do for our seniors here who have contributed for decades to our society, paid their taxes, done their bit for our communities.
Many years.
That's right. And so this would be something that we can do to help them out a little bit and give them a little bit more comfort in their household budgets until such time as they're ready to downsize or move into smaller accommodations.
Will there be a year limitation on that, or?
No, I think it'll be income tested base is what I understand, and so there'll be a certain threshold that you would have to meet, and then whatever their property tax bill is, then.
So if they're in their home for another 10 years, they could defer that for 10 years.
That's right. Yeah, there's no time limit on it from the proposal as I understand it.
And then I guess some people do stay in their own home and pass away, then it would be the estate's responsibility to take care of all that.
That's my understanding, yeah, because the estate would still then sell the house, and so then it could be paid with the profits of such a sale at such a time.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple other things we've done as well, some initiatives like we've offered a $2,000 grant for a certain income level. There's a threshold for seniors to purchase hearing aids, etc. That's all part of our senior strategy, which is a 5-year roadmap that's come out of the Stevenson Review on COVID-19 and how seniors were treated during that the COVID pandemic, trying to improve the healthcare services and overall services that we deliver to seniors in this province. So, I've heard from lots of folks who are very appreciative of this help. Hearing aids are expensive.
They are very.
Yes.
You can get them for cheaper, but the quality is not great, and seniors need their hearing aids.
Yes, exactly right.
For sure. Okay, farmers and the agricultural sector as a whole is vitally important in your constituency. They help create jobs in every aspect of our local economy. What will the re-elected Progressive Conservative government do to ensure that local farmers stay competitive?
Sure. Yeah, lots of issues in the ag sector, there's no question, although they don't get a lot of attention, maybe perhaps on the big provincial media stage, but it's a critical issue, and supporting, the next generation of farmers here, many of whom are friends of mine, folks I've grown up with, is something that's very important to me. So our party's made a few commitments specifically for farmers going forward. First of all is tripling the budgets for veterinary districts. I've heard loud and clear from the Service Vet Board here and others across Spruce Woods constituency that they just don't have enough. With the inflationary pressures we're experiencing, the difficulty in recruiting vets to rural Manitoba to deal with large animal, they're struggling. And so we're going to triple the budgets for veterinary service boards if we're re-elected. Something else we've committed to is cutting in half the rental fees for agricultural crown land leases. So if farmers are needing to rent some crown lands for extra pasture, etc., we're going to cut those rental fees in half just to make it that much more accessible for our cattle farmers to get this extra land that they need to raise their animals and support their families, support their communities. But the biggest one, I think, is our commitment to completely removing the education property tax off of both residential but also agricultural lands. We've got that rebate right now to 50% over the last couple of years. We're taking a phased approach. But our commitment, and we're the only party in this election that's committed to completely 100% removing the education tax off of farmland property. So
Really?
that's a significant, I think, help to the bottom line of our farmers. And it's an unfair system of taxation that targets them for being landowners to fund our education system. Almost every other province has moved away from funding education in this way, and so there's no reason why we can't as well. And we've committed to doing that.
And that helps the farmers be more productive and have more
That's right.
money and provide more jobs. And
That's right. Yeah,
and everything
exactly.
else. It's like a snowball.
That's right. Thrive and drive economic growth in this region, and hire more employees, et cetera, invest back into their communities, et cetera. So.
Okay. According to the Parliamentary Budget Officer and the Bank of Canada, the federal Liberal carbon tax is contributing to inflation and driving up the cost of everything. What is the Progressive Conservatives Party's position on the federal Liberal carbon tax?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Laura. It's a good question. I think to be quite clear, we're not in favor of the carbon tax. I think it unjustly penalizes people, particularly living in rural Manitoba, who have to drive everywhere. There's no public transit here. There's no taxis. You can't walk to get from your farm into town to hockey practice or whatever. And so, it unfairly penalizes people where there aren't those, significant services available that provincial and federal governments have largely paid for in major urban centers. We went to court. We tried to say that the carbon tax was unfair. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court of Canada ruled against us, ruled in favor of the federal government. So what our Premier has committed to doing is going back to the Supreme Court and saying, okay, you've said that the federal government has the right to impose this, in our opinion, unfair tax on Manitobans. But what about on their hydro bills? At least reconsider that, because Manitobans have already made a significant investment in Manitoba Hydro, which is a renewable energy source. Unlike many of the power companies and power generation in other provinces, which are built by coal-fired power plants, etc., our water, hydroelectric generation is all renewable. It's very environmentally friendly, non-emitting. 97% of our electricity grid here in Manitoba is green. And yet you're paying the carbon tax on your hydro bill. And so Manitobans are now, they've taken on significant debt because of these major investments in our, generating dams in northern Manitoba. And now you're being asked to pay again by paying the carbon tax on every one of your hydro bills. And so we think that's unfair. And so our Premier has committed that if we're reelected, we will go back to the Supreme Court and say, okay, Manitobans have made more than their fair share of an investment in green electricity generation, and it's totally unfair that this tax is charged on your hydro bills.
Right. And then can we do something about it?
That's right. Can we get it off there and carry on making investments it's not that we're against environmentally friendly policies. We certainly believe in protecting our environment. One of the last things that Minister Greg Nesbitt did before the writ was dropped in this election was name the 96th Manitoba Provincial Park, Pemmican Island, creating more preserved natural space in this province. We certainly believe in protecting our environment, but we just think that Manitobans should be treated fairly.
Yep, that's right. So healthcare is always a major issue during every provincial election. There are doctor and nurse shortages, which I'm totally aware of. I've been a nurse for 41 years, happening all across our country, including right here in Manitoba, of course. Does the Progressive Conservative Party have an action plan that will help to recruit and train more healthcare professionals?
Yes, so we do, and this is certainly the biggest challenge I'm facing and seeing at the doors in healthcare is human resources staffing, not so much capital funding. In fact, I think we've done a decent job of funding major capital investments in our healthcare facilities, not just in Winnipeg, but also in surrounding rural areas, trying to create hubs in order to reduce the burden on major emergency rooms and operating rooms in Winnipeg. We're expanding healthcare centers in Swan River, Russell, Brandon, Morden Winkler, Selkirk, Steinbach, Ashern, Thompson, building brand new hospitals in Portage and Neepawa. These are major, almost $1 billion in capital investments outside of the perimeter highway, right? So that people have access to greater services available and newer facilities in their communities or closer to their communities than Winnipeg. But the problem is people to work in them. And so this government, created the $200 million Health Human Resources Action Plan, which was to recruit, train, and retain 2,000 new healthcare professionals to the system. That money has been fully allocated, is my understanding, and so the leader of our party's commitment was that fund would be renewed on an annual basis going forward. So that's not just money for the HRs or RHAs, which they always get to do the job of recruiting and retaining professionals. This is supplementary to that, so that we're recruiting on a provincial government level as well to try and bolster the numbers of people we're bringing in. It's also about training them locally, and so this government 2 years ago announced 400 additional nursing seats. I'm happy to say that they weren't all in Winnipeg. A number of those seats went to Brandon University and Assiniboine Community College, so they're now having larger enrollments, larger grad classes. Should these boosts have been made 10 years ago? Absolutely. They certainly should have been. I'm happy, not happy, but I'm here to take accountability for that, even though I wasn't an MLA 10 years ago. It absolutely should have been done. It wasn't. It has been done now. And as you well know, it takes 2 to 4 years to train a nurse, longer to train a doctor, but these larger classes of graduates are coming. And U of M as well took the largest medical class in their history this year, 127 students up from 110. So there's more doctors coming out of our medical school here in Brandon as well, or in Winnipeg. I'd like to talk, particularly having part of Brandon in this constituency, I'd like to talk about training some more medical students in Brandon as opposed to them all having to go to Winnipeg. These are discussions that we need to have with Brandon University and the College of Physicians and Surgeons going forward, but that's something that I'm certainly very passionate about, is training as many people in as many different professions as we can right here in Westman.
Or even some kind of incentive program to get the healthcare workers to come into rural Manitoba for a number of years. Like commit themselves to coming out here for so many years. Yeah,
longer than the 2 or 3 years right now that a contract may be for, and I think that's important. It's also important to note that we have recently just signed new collective agreements both with the Nurses Union as well as Doctors Manitoba. The feedback that I've heard from those associations as well as members that, they took too long to get deals signed, but the deals are good deals. And so the incentives are there. There have been some, achievements made, particularly when it comes to attracting doctors to family practice, which is a struggle right now. Many new grads don't want to do family practice, particularly in rural Manitoba.
Yeah, I know.
And so, my understanding from doctors that I've knocked on their door is that there were some headway was made in this latest deal. It's only about 5 weeks old, so we've got to give it some time to work. But I'm, at least a little optimistic, given the feedback I've heard, that we're heading in the right direction.
Oh, good. Good to hear. Good to hear that they care about rural Manitoba.
Yes.
Because,
Yeah.
you know, we take our chances living out here with, you know, some places don't have ambulance drivers, some places don't have open clinics, some places, I mean, it can be pretty scary living out here.
Yes, and these are all, you know, human resources challenges more than they are funding of ambulances, you know, and so
Right.
we need to address this. Paramedics is another issue. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. And, you know, Assiniboine Community College used to have a paramedic program. My understanding is that it was closed down because the seats weren't full.
Ah.
They weren't filling the seats. And so that's a combination of faults. It's the government's fault. It's, you know, the college can do a better job of recruitment. RHAs, you know, we need to all work together to make sure that these positions, these careers are attractive to people, and so that we're filling these training seats when government offers them. So I'm quite committed to working with Assiniboine Community College and the government to try and bring a paramedic program back to Brandon so that people don't have to go to Winnipeg to train to be a paramedic.
Right.
But if we do get that, then we've got to work together to make sure those seats are full. There's no
Right.
point in having a program with empty seats in it.
That's right.
You know, and so we've got to make sure that we're recruiting locally to our students in grades 11 and 12 and making sure that they know they can have rewarding and fulfilling careers in these communities and serve their communities in these careers. So
Yeah.
there's lots of moving parts, but it's certainly something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, very good, very good. So, Grant, you're a young man who is running for office for the first time. What has your experience been so far throughout this campaign?
Interesting question. It's been busy. It has been busy from the time I won the nomination at the end of February there until now. I mean, you're juggling a job as well as being a candidate in the evenings and the weekends, and then now that we're into the full campaign period, you're campaigning, you know, full time. A lot of doors to knock on in this constituency. It's unique in that it has some urban area in the North Hill of Brandon, and then everything from Rivers and Oak Lake all the way east to Holland. So there's a lot of doors in those communities, a lot of areas, a lot of community celebrations, a lot of places to be. But you know what? The reception's been very positive everywhere I've been, and I think people are excited to see someone perhaps a little younger with some fresher energy and a fresh perspective who's going to get in there and really work hard for them. And I think that certainly fits me to a T. I'm very passionate about this town in particular, but this whole region, and very excited about the potential that Western Manitoba has. We're on the cusp of some pretty incredible growth right now, and we're seeing some major investment interested in this province because it is a stable place to be. And as we're seeing around the globe, things can, you know, get unstable in a fairly quick order.
Right.
And so, you know, Manitoba is increasingly, you know, more attractive to these people. And so we've got to have the right incentives, the right packages in place so that when they come knocking on our door, we don't let them get away. And I think, you know, I think there's a lot of work to do, but I think, you know, we're on the cusp of some pretty exciting stuff, and I'm just really excited to be a part of it. And I hope all the voters of this constituency feel the same way, and, you know, we'll see what happens on October 3rd.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in and joining us, Grant. We really appreciate your time.
Glad to be here. Thanks very much, Laura.
Thank you so much for joining us here at Spotlight in Souris. And people of Souris, please get out and vote on October 3rd, 2023. Thank you. Have a great day.